Wondering how you can become better at running your business? Entrepreneurship can be stressful. There's too much to do and not enough time. If you're isolated in your daily decisions, have no fear. Success and balance are possible. Welcome to the Small Business Answer Man podcast, where you master the art of running a successful business using practical advice from experts who want to help you succeed. Now, here's your host, Gary Wilbers.
Welcome. We're glad to have you again this week for another great guest. I told you this third quarter, I want to really concentrate on finding guests that can make a difference in your business. And today, I think we found that guest because everyone has to do this in business. I'm not going to share what it is. I'll let Melissa share what it is. But Melissa, would you first share with our audience, what problem will you help them solve?
Hey, Gary, thanks so much for having me on the show. What problem will I help them solve? You know, people bump into me all the time and they get so excited because I help people pay less in taxes. So to answer your question, the problem is taxes, and we help our clients pay less.
Well, that is an interesting conversation because we're now in the second half of the year. I know business owners well enough, because I'm one myself, that the thing is once we get past April 15th, we kind of want to forget about it for a while. But the only thing is, the reason I wanted to bring Melissa on is because you need to be thinking about it now, because it can make a difference for you next year when you do go to that time to fill out your taxes to be able to pay less. And there's some things that we're going to share there. So it's great to have, there's a husband and wife team of this, Eric and Melissa, but today we've got Melissa on with us, Broughton, and they're passionate, and their mission really is to help small business owners legally reduce their tax liability. And Melissa, when I saw that, I knew I had to get you on as a guest on the podcast, because I'm like anyone else. We work too darn hard as small business owners to pay more taxes, and there's legal things that you can do to reduce that tax burden. So welcome to the show, and we're excited to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gary.
Well, let's just start out with, right out the gate, really about some of those challenges, because taxes come up every year. Everyone needs to fill out their form. If you don't, you're going to get in trouble at some point. You think you can get by with it. It won't last very long. So we know that's a challenge. So what really sets you apart, do you think, of how you look at really your firm does versus regular, where other accountants and other firms do? What kind of sets your company apart? Share that with us.
So let's take that back a step, and let me say this, that I'm sure will perk somebody out there's ears up. And that's the fact that we really believe that the tax system, and I promise I won't swear, I'll beat myself out, but the tax system is rigged, and it's not rigged in a taxpayer's favor. And, you know, I say that, and I'll say that to an audience when we're up and we're doing a speaking engagement, and you see people kind of come out of their days of, oh God, we're talking about taxes. You know, it's something everybody knows that they have to deal with, and nobody really gets excited about it. But the system is rigged. And I say that because the tax code changes every year, and it's literally thousands and thousands and thousands of pages. And, you know, the amendments that come to it, or the revisions that happen, or the things, you know, depending on who happens to be in office, different bills get voted in, and it's enough to make business owners' head absolutely spin. And so the traditional accounting system, and I promise I will get to a point, but the traditional accounting system, or the traditional system with your, you know, your tax preparers, so your CPAs and your EAs and your licensed tax professionals across the board, is that the business owner has the responsibility of putting together financials for their previous year's activities, turning those financials over to the tax preparer, kind of like turning in your homework to the teacher, except it's a little bit more like turning in your homework to the teacher that never gave you any lecture on the class. You're just supposed to know. And so I don't know if it's better or worse that we can all have a Google education these days, but we hear about things, or we learn just enough to make us dangerous. And then we put our financials together and turn things over to our tax professional. And we assume that that's like we're hitting it out of the park. And the problem is that you only know what you know, and you certainly don't know what you don't know. And I say that and I laugh, and I think if my grandma was still alive, she'd be laughing right along with me, but it's just true. And so you have the person who's professional, who's in a spot of being overworked. Tax preparers are probably, in fact, I read an article actually last week that we are the number one retiring professional, type of person out there. So the number of tax professionals is reducing. The number of business owners, I believe, is increasing, and it creates this very interesting scenario. So all of that being said, because if I go any longer on that, I'll lose people. All of that being said, our mission was to do it differently. And so when my husband and I set out to do taxes for small businesses, we knew we wanted to do it differently, and we just didn't really quite know how. So what we figured out was that we didn't want to just be order takers, and we wanted to educate our clients. And now with that, some people are open to education and some people aren't, right? Some people are listening to this podcast and they're learning things. Maybe they're taking notes while they're on their treadmill. Hopefully they're being careful. And other people are just listening to us as entertainment and kind of absorbing things. But we decided that we wanted to be proactive and work alongside our clients throughout the year, before the year has come to an end, to help them be successful at whatever it is that they're trying to do. So we will get calls where our clients say, okay, I want to go on vacation to Aspen for 7 days, and I want to be able to write as much of it off, as a business tax deduction as possible. And so we'll and of course, if anybody's going to Aspen, please give me a call. I'd love to join you.
I want to
Haven't seen you in
take
a
it
long
too.
time, but right. I can fit in the suitcase. We will work with them to figure out a scenario to make that happen. But that only happens because we work with our clients throughout the year. So we're proactive. And that is the biggest thing that we do that's different.
Yeah, and I think what really sets apart, even with your company, Busy Bee Advisors,
Right.
that you're advising versus, just really reporting the information or reporting the numbers. And I think that really sets it apart. And what I want business owners to hear is you can have a difference. And that's the thing, is be open for that. Because if you're tired of coming to the tax time and frustrated with, at that time, it should not be a surprise come April 15th. You should know ahead of time pretty well where you're at, and with the right services, you can get that. So let's step back just a little bit and talk about a few strategies, if you don't mind, maybe giving away a little of them secrets. You gave the example
Sure.
of, you're going on a trip and how can you write it off? What are some things that, people can be thinking about that are really strategies, and really they're built into the code that you're doing it legally? So we're not talking about illegal things. What are some of those things that business owners should think about? And travel's one of them you've hit on already.
Yeah, of course, travel is one of those. Another one, there's ones that people have heard about that I think it just takes a little bit of investigation. One of the things that we love to work with clients on, if you have children that are still at home, if you run a small business and you have children that are still at home, those kids are inevitably part of that business. And so why not put them on payroll? You can pay your kids up to, I believe this year it's $14,000. Don't quote me on that, but it's pretty close to that. That you can pay your kids up to $14,000 and not have to pay, employment taxes on that, or federal and state taxes. So that's one of the ways. Now, if you take it a step further, so you say that to somebody, like, imagine if that was on a bus billboard and you saw it driving by, and you saw it as a small business owner and you went, well, I'm a small business owner, I have kids. Okay, that's a good idea. But then there's no really guidance on what to do. So kind of one of the big benefits of doing that, of course, if you already are set up with a payroll company, um, easy enough to put them on payroll. But one of the big benefits of doing that is that's an excellent way to save college. I mean, $14,000 a year times 10 years, that's tuition right there. And so we have those conversations with our clients, and that's incredibly exciting. One of the other ones that I'll say that's huge, and I just don't know why more small business owners don't take advantage of it, is becoming a corporation. And, straight off, straight out the gate, by becoming an S Corp or a C Corp, what you're doing is you're helping to alleviate those self-employment taxes. So that alone is giving you a 15.3% raise. I mean, I don't think coupons are even a thing anymore, but I remember when we used to go crazy, you'd see a coupon for 15% off, and that would, make you inclined to go buy whatever it was because you felt like you were saving money. So you're giving yourself a tax break on that, that as well. And I'm going to say another one, and this is one where people roll their eyes at me, but bookkeeping is huge. Staying on top of your books on a monthly basis and not waiting until the end of the year is probably the single biggest thing small business owners can do. And I'm not even talking about hiring a bookkeeper. I'm talking about doing it yourself, reconciling your books, knowing where your numbers are at, and doing it throughout the year so that you're not waiting until the end of the year and doing this huge cram session where, I crammed in college for quite a few tests, probably more than I would like to admit, more than I would ever tell my kids I did. And I certainly didn't retain that information. So give yourself the time. I just published a new book actually on bookkeeping called The 4-Hour Bookkeeper. And I'll give you details on where you can find it, but it just really tells you as a business owner to spend 4 hours a month, an hour a week, and stay on top of your numbers. And that will make a huge difference.
And that's a big one. I do some business coaching, and I had a client one time told me, well, I just don't like doing that financial stuff. And I said, that financial stuff's going to either keep you in business or going to take you out of business. And it becomes so crucial. And I love the one you shared with the kids. We just had our last child graduate from college here just a few months ago, and she graduated from college. And we did that. I was actually at a seminar, and it was one of them all-day seminars. And coming up on the sheet was this person, and he used to work for the IRS. And yes, he was as boring as that, about as, he gave you the information, but it was the majority of the room left. That was when they took a break. I said, well, I'm going to get something out of this presentation. The thing I got out of this presentation is about hiring your kids, and our kids were in our advertisements back then. So we had plenty of proof that they worked and they did things if they ever came back to us, because they do have to do something, and we did that. And our children went through college through putting them through the educational savings that we put away for that. And we invested it, of course, and paid it 100% because of that reason. And, at the time, we never even told them they got paid. We put it directly there. They were young enough. And today they are very thankful because they're not carrying any debt out of college. And I'm proud of that myself as a father, and my wife is too, that we were able to do that for them. But it was something that they helped us too, because then they were advertising in ours, and we had a commercial every year, and we do a Christmas card, and it became kind of our model with our company.
That's beautiful. And it gives me like goosebumps. It really does. It gives me goosebumps to hear that, because it's such a huge benefit for your children to be a part of your business. Our oldest is in the Marine Corps, and we couldn't be prouder of him. And our youngest is a sophomore in high school, just finished his sophomore year in high school, and is still at home, not ready for him to leave the nest yet. But them being a part of the business helps them to understand, the hard work and what mom and dad are busting their butts over. And it's important. It's It's really important. So.
I agree with you. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a few moments. And now back to the show. Well, I just love that because I think it's about strategies, but I think it also goes back to what we spoke about earlier. It's about being proactive and not reactive. And let's be honest, I know business owners that's listening, they're busy people. I understand that because I own my own business. I still own my own business, and it's easy to get into those other things. But the only thing is the financial is such a big part of it because it was when cash is everything. If you don't have any cash, you can't pay your people. You can't buy your supplies. You can't do the things you want. And too many business owners really, they're always looking for that pot of gold. Well, you've got to work on it throughout the year. And that's what we're talking about here. And I think another thing that's so important, and I'd love to get your feedback on this, Melissa, on with budgeting and looking at budgets and how that can really help a business owner in their business. Can you share some thoughts on budgeting and how important you think that is for companies?
I think budgeting is probably, well, we'll say bookkeeping is the most important thing. We're going to say budgeting is number two. And budgeting is probably the thing that gets me the most excited to talk about. And the reason why, yep, I know business owners are probably the busiest people on the planet, right? I mean, you're wearing at any given time so many different hats because your business is maybe not quite big enough to justify a full-time position for that, for that person. And so who ends up doing it? It's you as the business owner. So why is a budget important? I could go on for hours about it, but I'll say this. You say the word budget if you want to clear a room out really fast, or if you want people to kind of turn off and stop listening to you. And so I'm going to say to listeners out there, bear with me, because what if a budget wasn't a negative thing? And I think that a lot of people think budget and they think diet, and it's like they're synonymous. And a budget doesn't necessarily have to mean cutting back on things. A lot of times a budget, or at least the way we at Busy Bee view a budget, is a way of being conscious of your spending. So I'm not going to go out there. I remember, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago when there were all of these financial planners that were on the scene, and they were saying, stop, buying your Starbucks and invest that money in your 401k. And it's like, if me not having my caramel macchiato in the morning that makes me a nice person is going to be the difference between me retiring or not, there are bigger problems. However, if I was mindful of, I knew people that were going 2 or 3 times a day to Starbucks, and I won't stick on the Starbucks thing for too long because I think coffee is awesome. But at $5 a pop, or now I think they're like $8, a piece, that adds up. So budgeting is about being conscious of your spending. And what we like to do with clients, and this is kind of an easy way to do it, is to go back through, pull your last 3 months, and this can work for non-business owners as well. Pull your last 3 months of statements for your business. If you use credit cards for your business, grab those. If you're just strictly using a checking account, grab your last 3 months of statements and try to, categorize things and maybe pick like 4 or 5 categories. So you've got draws, you've got money that's being pulled out for yourself. That should be one. You've got office supplies. That should be another. You've got meals and entertainment. That should be a third. And then, let's say utilities is your fourth, and let's give an other category. And really try and track. You can use highlighters. I like the pack of 5 different colored highlighters. Highlight away and give your totals for yourself for those, each month of the last 3 months. Figure out your average. So of course, we all know to do an average, you add all 3 up, divide it by 3, you get your average, and then put your numbers in the coordinating categories. And that's kind of your goal for what you want your benchmark to be. Now, we all know that if we want to make more money, we can do it one of two ways, right? We can sell more stuff or we can spend less money. So if you're in a position where you can't necessarily charge more, maybe it is time to cut back. But a budget is also an excellent way if you want to grow your business. And so one of the things that we do coach clients on is if they want to grow, and the budget is the number one place to start with that.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And I agree. I think it's one of the most crucial things you can do. And even if you're a new startup, you can take those 3 months, your first 3 months of startup. So it's really across the board. And I get people saying all the time, it's so confusing. Well, if you've got a couple years in, it's really easy for you to do because you can break that out. So I think that's so important. Again, it's about being proactive versus reactive. But if you're proactive, you're going to save more on taxes. You're going to find strategies that work, and you're going to be proactive in this. And that kind of brings me that question as we have to start wrapping up our time is really about that proactive side. I've heard this now. I'm a business owner. You've kind of tweaked my interest. So the question is, of course, I've got somebody that I work with now. So if I'm in that position, what's some questions that would really should I be asking my tax accountant or my tax preparer now to maybe see, are they the right fit or not for me in that area? And what's some questions that would kind of set that out? Because I need to know, because really for people, it's hard for them to make change, but sometimes it's also when you make change, that's going to improve it for yourself. And you've got to look at your business. That's the whole key behind this. What's best for your business?
I think the first thing that I would do is reach out. If you have that long time relationship with a tax professional and you trust them, and you feel like there's good communication with them, or there's good feeling, that I want to say that we want to encourage that relationship, right? We would never want another professional telling our clients, hey, you should try our services. So the least we're going to do is tell consumers out there, small business owners out there, that they should jump ship and that we're going to be better for them, or that anybody else is going to be better for them than their current provider. Your current tax professional, if you've worked with them for any amount of time, knows your history, and there's a lot of value to that. If you want to see if they're going to be as advantageous to you and your tax situation as possible, I would say give them a call and ask them the simple question of, what is it that I can be doing right now to save on taxes? You're not calling them on April 14th and asking the question. You're not calling them on September 14th, the day before the extension, or October 14th, the day before the personal extension. You're not calling them on any big tax days. You're calling them at a normal time of the year when it's not super busy, not peak time, and you're asking them the question. And you're asking them that question for a couple of reasons. You're asking first to see what answers they give you, because they may come up with a whole bunch of things that surprise you, and they're just waiting for you to show up as an excited business owner who wants to participate. Because it's tough for us as tax professionals when we have clients that we want to give all of this good advice to, but we know that they won't take it, right? So you're receptive, they get excited, that's awesome. But if they come back to you and they don't have any answers, or if they're simply just not responsive, that's when I recommend that you might want to shop around.
Yeah, that's great advice. I appreciate you sharing that. And from the level, you can show that they do this because they love and they're passionate about what they do, and I can tell that. And I really appreciate that of coming on the podcast and sharing like that. Now, before we wrap up, number one, I want them to know your website. It's busybeeadvisors.com. Of course, you can go there. We'll have it in show notes. So I know people are probably busy right now and they can't write it down, but you can go in show notes and it's going to be there. We're going to have a couple other things there too. They've got a neat site, kickmytaxbill.com. So check those things out. We'll have them there. But you also kind of have a call to action if they're interested or would like to. Please share that. What you're willing to share with the audience that you said you would give for our listeners.
Sure. I love when I listen to a podcast, especially one that's been as riveting as this one has been for your listeners to learn about taxes. I like to reward people for sticking with us and listening. So I would love to give any of your interested listeners a free copy of my newest book, The 4-Hour Bookkeeper, putting my goodwill out there, helping empower some business owners on, taking bookkeeping on themselves and having it not be as scary as they thought it would be. I tried to figure out the best way to do it, and the best way to have them do it is to shoot us an email, and our email address will be in the show notes. We're not going to add your email address to anything. We really just want to put good out in the world, and we'll send you a downloadable copy of my newest book, The 4-Hour Bookkeeper.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that and giving that to the audience. That's a great one. And, and the thing is, as a business owner, you may say, well, I don't do the bookkeeping. You don't have to do the bookkeeping. What you're doing is learning by hearing what is needed to be done during that time. So if you have someone that does your bookkeeping, that's okay. Still order the book. And then maybe what you can do is read it and then pass it on to that other individual. Definitely check Melissa out there on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. We're going to have all those in show notes that's available to you. But Melissa, before I let you go, I ask every guest this same question. And that question is, what would be your best advice you would give the business owners?
Be proactive in your business. I know it is so tempting when you've got this huge stack of stuff to do, but be proactive in your business. If you need to hire somebody to help, hire somebody to help. There's some excellent virtual assistants out there that will not cost nearly as much as you think they would, that can take tons of those little tasks that you don't want to do off your plate, but be proactive in your business.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. And I'll kind of always leave the audience with an action, and that's mine. It's time to be proactive. We're in the second half of 2024. If you want to see a different result and you weren't happy with the result this year of your tax bill, now is the time to start really working on it. Really, it was at the beginning of the year, but since we're talking to you now, it's right now. Right now is the time. So instead of just tuning this off, let's go do the research and let's get proactive in our actions. So when we come to the end of the year, we know what we're prepared for. And we've given you some great tips. The one thing I would ask you to do, please share the information here, because other business owners. So like and share this podcast and let others hear it, because that may be the thing they need. I know I've got a few clients that I'll be sharing this with, because they've been talking about what do they need to do different in that area. And check out their website, busybeeadvisors.com, kickmytaxbill.com. We'll have all that in show notes that's available to you. Melissa, thank you so much for giving us great information and sharing your expertise with my listeners.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Now, listeners, I want you to just go out and take action. You can hear a great podcast, but go into them show notes and pull that information up and take action on it. I'm looking forward to having another great guest for you next week that's going to help your small business. I told you this quarter, my goal is to have actionable strategies. And I think we've given you one, because taxes are no fun, but they're more fun when you pay less and you put more money in your pocket. And that's our goal for you this quarter. So thanks for joining us today. Make it a great day. We'll see you next week.
That's all the time we have for this week. To continue your journey, head over to smallbusinessanswerman.biz to access the tools and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with someone who would benefit from listening. That's smallbusinessanswerman.biz. Until next time, remember, when you find the right solutions, your business grows and you get your time back.